Penn State will travel down to Morgantown, where many beers will be consumed
Hmm.
on the fine streets there by the fine people who used to root for my guy, Mike Gansey. West Virginia, an 8.5 point underdog. They've taken some money. This line was 10 and above earlier in the summer. Total has ticked up to 51.5. The one thing that I'll note, and I'll let you break this one down since I kind of ran with my ramble in Clemson, Georgia. Andy Kotelnicki, a couple years ago, dominated this defensive staff in Morgantown in the season opener when he was at Kansas. I believe they put up 55. Although they won by 13 in overtime. I think there was a pick six at the end. But the offense just went bananas. Penn State's offense should be much better under the tutelage of Kotelnicki. Can Drew Aller take that next step? A true number one wide receiver emerge? But with Kotelnicki, do you really need that? He spreads the ball around. Their offense definitely should be better. And is the question here, and I'll let you answer it, if the Penn State offense can move the ball under Kotelnicki against this West Virginia defense, which certainly isn't elite, is this just come down to Penn State being able to stop West Virginia's ground game? And if they do that, good night. If West Virginia is able to run it, we got a ball game. What say you?
Yeah, it's that easy. And I'll save the market for later because it's definitely a factor in this game. Listen, West Virginia can only compete here if the offensive line wins the trench with for their three-headed monster of quarterback Garrett Green, running back CJ Donaldson, and running back Jaheim White. They can move a pile. It just depends on when first contact is going to be. And the Penn State defense projects as the top defensive line and linebacker combo in the Big Ten this year. And defensive coordinator Tom Allen is a former, defensive coordinator and head coach of Indiana, and he is widely respected as one of the best in the business. Abdul Carter is going to switch positions here. He was at middle linebacker last year. He is such a havoc-minded player. They wanted to get him closer to the ball, so they moved him up to defensive end. So I do expect Penn State to maintain all of their rankings that they had the year before. They were sixth in defensive finishing drives. They were first in defensive quality drives. That means you couldn't get into scoring position. You couldn't get across the 50. You had a lot of 3-and-outs. Penn State was great at that, and I don't expect that to change whatsoever. And, of course, a staple of Penn State, no matter who the defensive coordinator is, they were fourth in defensive havoc. That's not going to go away. The questions all come on the offensive side of the ball going up against West Virginia. Sadly, I feel like we are in a situation we had with week 0 where you and I talked about sometimes you have so many transfers on a particular unit, and you don't know what you're going to get. And I feel that's what we're getting in the West Virginia on the back end with them.
They definitely tried to hit the portal to fix their secondary, which stayed very healthy last year. Guys like Beanie Bishop but there were some issues and some leaks, but they tried to fix that in the portal. So that's definitely the high variance part of this game.
Well, let's talk about what could go wrong with Penn State here. The fact that can Drew Aller grasp Andy Kotelnicki's offense? He's going to have to know so much motion, so much counter, so much misdirection, trick plays. This was not in the Penn State offensive playbook under Mike Yurcich at all. As a matter of fact, it became one of the most stale, boring, and predictable offenses that was in college football last year, which I believe is why a pink slip was issued. But, Drew Aller's adoption of that offense in the playbook, how much of it has he ingested? How much of it is he going to be able to produce? That is one area where this could go wrong for Penn State. Also, Nick Singleton and Katron Allen. What happened to these guys last year? They both went, under 3 yards after contact? Neither of them were able to create missed tackles anymore. They just fell off a map when it came to being elusive and explosive. I don't think that was an offensive line problem. That was really all on them, especially yards after contact. Now, that brings me to the market because
teams also didn't respect the passing attack, which made it easier to defend the run.
And they loaded up, but still, Penn State ranked mid FBS on when they had first contact on their running back. So, it's not like they were being touched 5 yards behind the line of scrimmage. It's just there was just no juice with these two and no clue why. And it never came back. Now, Drew Aller finally started taking deep shots, but it was still pretty limited there at the end of the season, I think, after they played Michigan. The market is raging on West Virginia right now. This is a number that I believe I had projected at like 15.5, and SP Plus has it at 14. We're south of 10. and it is still taking money. And I don't know if we're going to end up at 7. I don't know if we're going to end up at 6.5. And at what point do you take this? Because right now, the current market, as you and I are recording this, says that Penn State would beat West Virginia by 5 on a neutral field. That's crazy town. All right. I understand what West Virginia is offensively and defensively, but something I think bigger is going on here that is driving this. It can't just be service releases. It just can't be touts. It just can't be. There's got to be something that's driving this number because it is so far off the radar. If I had to pick out a spot, it's going to be the Penn State offense. So,
Well, and
for
James
that,
Franklin will try to cover for you. Didn't you have West Virginia against Penn State when they did the
yeah,
ring around
yeah.
a Rosie?
Yeah, I was so yeah. In case you guys don't know, there could be some Neil Brown revenge factor here going on for what was happening. I think the spread was 20.5 or 21, and it was covered. It covered the entire game. I believe the game was sitting around 18 or 15 before Neil Brown called a timeout with about a minute 20 left, and Neil Brown calling a timeout with a minute 20 left, down by 2 or 3 possessions, pissed James Franklin off, and he decided to push it in as quickly and as fast as possible to cover that spread for Penn State. I mean, that was demoralizing. It was mentioned at media day, although I'm not going to talk about it because coaches won't talk about spreads, but it was mentioned that James Franklin did not really have to push that in. So there is a revenge factor here for West Virginia, but that can't be the reason that this number has dropped this much. So I say keep your eyes on the market. Keep your eyes open or keep your ears open for any potential problems that are going on with this offense. Again, there could be suspensions. There could be things happening here that we don't know about that we'll continue to work on. It's Wednesday. We got 3 days to go. We'll figure out what we can, we'll tweet out anything that I can find about why this number is moving so much.
Yeah, I'm around 11. I will say I do expect the Penn State offense to be better, and I do expect the West Virginia rush offense, which ran for nearly just under 3,000 yards, which is best among all Power 5 teams last year. I do expect them to take a slight step back. Mainly, their offensive line is still going to be very good, top 20, top 15 in the country, but they lost their center, Zach Frazier, who's going to start week 1 in the NFL, and they lost a really good tackle. So his offensive line is still going to be really good, but you lose your 2 best. You're probably going to take a step back. They still have some really good ones, and if Penn State doesn't have to load the box and can slow down the run game, that was how Garrett Green would throw the ball, right? They were running all over you. Safeties have to come down. Then he's taking deep shots and vertical. Like, his accuracy, isn't the best. He's not going to drop back and beat you throwing intermediary. So Penn State can stop the run, get the push up front. That's problematic for the Mountaineer offense. For what it's worth, though, over the past 20 years, if you're into trends, top 25 teams on the road in week 1 against unranked opponents, only 42% against the spread.